So, of course, one of the things that we're all watching closely today, when you take a look at the economic calendar, which I hope you all have, take a look at what type of fundamental data is hitting the market and affecting the psychology. Again, remember, there's a big difference between looking at an economic calendar and playing the news versus understanding that there's going to be a significant amount of psychology accompanying the release times. So consider, and we'll start off with this look this morning because this chart's on the move right now, and that's the cable. So we'll start off with a look at the daily chart, and for that I like to have a 1 year look back. That 1 year look back allows me to take a peek at 52-week highs and lows, allows me to understand what the dominant trend has been over the last year, and for this time frame, the end of day time frame, I feel that 1 year has the psychologically relevant price action that I need to be aware of to set up a trade again on this time frame. So as I look at the calendar here, you can see I'm going back to about the end of September. Not quite 1 year, but I could slide it over just a smidge and take a look if I'm missing anything in terms of significant lows, which it appears that I might be. So what I could do to compensate for that is take a look at this low back here. So it was 53, 52.95. So what I can do at that point, just to make sure that I don't lose sight of that, not that we're anywhere near it, but I'll go ahead and put a line down here. Make sure I have 52.95. And for support line, my preference is just to have it green. Just makes everything easier for me to keep track of when everything's just kind of color-coded in terms of what it means to me. And then I could zoom back to the right edge of the chart, squeeze my 1 year back in, and if and when we actually get down there, I'll worry about it. But just to have it, and by the way, I could do the same thing with the high, 52-week high, just, again, what's relevant to this time frame. Again, it's nowhere near in play, but just habits. This one is 67.45. Again, easy enough. 67.45. Of course, this is resistance, which I'd like to see in red. Little bits of homework like this, I think, little difference, little habits make a difference. So I'm aware of where I am in terms of the big picture of the daily. Now the next thing I want to do, of course, is take a look at my grab candles, take a look at the 34 EMA wave, and I think right now we're arguably looking at what is obviously bullish sentiment and bullish momentum. The BOE, I think, was a little bit more dovish. I mean, if you look at the meeting minutes, the forecast was for a vote of 2 to 7. So 2 dissenters. We actually came in with a vote of 0 to 9. In other words, nobody was dissenting. Everybody wanted to keep rates where they're at. So it's interesting because these votes now are becoming more and more important in terms of dissenters and so forth, because I don't know that anyone really expected the meeting minutes to show anything. Look, we're more reliant on votes and minutes than we are actual rate changes in a way that I don't ever recall being as important 11, 12 years ago. We always paid attention to it, but now it seems to be so much more important. Who dissented and why. And so these votes, the actual vote count is getting, the details to which fundamentals are increasingly becoming more researched, and the details and the amount of fundamentals. I remember when I was trading stocks in the mid-90s and even index futures, we just really didn't have the number of fundamentals that we do today. So it's interesting. I'm not a fundamental trader, but respecting the psychology that they can impose on the market, the level, the detail, and the number of fundamentals have absolutely increased in terms of what is watched by the trading public at large, and it's very interesting to me, and somewhat irritating too, because obviously increases volatility. So I won't kid you about that. Being a price-based technical trader, I don't really want all these necessarily to have to deal with, but they are what they are. And again, the meeting minutes came in with no dissenters, and here we are, a 0-9 vote, and you can see what it did to the cable. Now, the cable, even before this vote, had 2 green grab candles, and that did show bullish sentiment and momentum, right? And in terms of the way that prices are heading up, now I'm going to start, now that the fundamentals are out there, now I'm going to start looking at price action. Where could the sellers be waiting? Where could they be perched, waiting to pounce? Well, you can see this past high back here, sitting at 65. Oh, let's see, it looks like 65.45. So I'll go ahead and make sure I put that in at 65.45. It's a resistance level, so I'll keep it red. And there we go. Now, there's another resistance back here, but we seem to have gone past that. But it's still one that we can keep an eye on. 65.16. So I'll make sure that's at the right level. Oh, wasn't that far off. Okay, 65.16. So, got an area in which we could expect to see some weakness. So it's a fairly thick area, but at either one of these, I could see some selling pressure come in. So back here, potential selling pressure. Once again, potential selling pressure. So this is a zone, if you will, where I could see the weakness come in. The other thing to remember is I don't know that I would consider this to be an established, even though I can see that the angle of the middle line of the wave is starting to really take on that more 12 to 2 o'clock angle, I wouldn't call this an established uptrend. Okay, would not call it an established uptrend, but certainly the bullish sentiment and momentum we've seen over the last 2 candles, and now the 3rd green grab candle is definitely showing the bullish momentum and sentiment. We could pull it up to a 12 to 2, but we're not there yet, and certainly these 2 highs back here might have something to say about it. In fact, there's some action previously at these levels before, even back in here, back in April. So in terms of not forgetting about the entire year look back, that's pretty much what's in play now. So what does this tell me? What is all this discussion I'm talking about as far as a directional bias? What is that going to give me? Well, now I know that there's a little bit more bullish sentiment and momentum, but we don't have a longer term trend, and that's usually going to have me shy away from longer term intraday time frames. Okay? I'll be a little bit more cautious about those. Now, that's really unfortunate because one of the trades that I did pass on, and you could take them as an aggro trade. You don't have to pass on them completely, but one of the trades I did pass on was parking a limit order at the 34 EMA high on the uptrend that we saw on the 240-minute time frame. Here, here, there. You know, these were 3 swing trade opportunities within the context of what was what is what we consider a 12 to 2 o'clock uptrend. All right, but because the daily time frame didn't have a directional bias, I'm uncomfortable with expecting longer-term organization of sentiment and momentum. So here we are. So I don't always want to, you know, sometimes people think, oh, you know, these filters, they guarantee. There's no guarantee. None. I want to make sure you understand that sometimes the filters that I'm talking about will omit trades, but I worry less about the trades I miss, more so than, you know, for example, taking too many, having too few filters, taking too many aggressive or unconfirmed or unqualified trades. I'd rather miss some than get too aggressive. I'd rather look for a reason to not take a trade than to take one. Okay, some people might call that gun shy. That's fine. I just call it being picky. Okay, and that really is, I think, more important. If I want to pinpoint a reason for the longevity of my trading, I would definitely pinpoint it to not being trigger happy, okay, but being gun shy, being more picky about my trades, being more selective. I always like it. You know, I think a lot of people make the pilot flying an airplane reference. You know, I don't fly airplanes, but I am a scuba diver. So each one of these specialties has a checklist. You know, for us, if you consider for a diver, it's, you know, fins, make sure your mask is, say, defogged and sized, the strap is sized right, make sure your BC is properly inflated, make sure you have the right weight, you know, all the different aspects of what you might be doing, right? Heck, big one here, make sure your air is on. Computers are a big part of diving now. Make sure your dive computer is on and ready and reset and whatever else. Okay? For anybody who's spearfishing or doing anything underwater, you know, you have your checklist. Well, I would go through that very basic checklist that I just outlined there, and if one of those things is missing or incorrect, I would stop and correct it, right? But the big point here is I would stop. I would not proceed. I would not go ahead, and I would not say to myself, yeah, I'll just go ahead and dive in the water anyways. Well, that's what trading is like. Trading is the same way. So if I have a checklist, and I'll be frank, I know that a lot of traders talk about keeping journals. Okay? I know a lot of them do. Let me tell you what is realistic to me. Okay? I know that a lot of traders talk about how important it is, and they'll have this huge checklist, and I start looking at it, and it looks very impressive. You know, all these questions that they ask themselves. And I think I do ask myself many of those same questions as well. But the way I answer them and the way I proceed through them is, what I would recommend is 2 things. One is I like those yellow kind of long sticky notes, the ones that have a whole bunch of lines on them, and I'll write down my checklist and I'll stick it on my desk. So I don't know if you guys have ever seen those. Post-it makes the super adhesive, yes, super adhesive sticky notes, and you can write your checklist on there, so it becomes really a mental habit. I don't want to have to always use it, you know, go back to my checklist constantly. I'd rather just commit it to memory. So I have my sticky note with my mental checklist, or in the beginning you might just tape it to your desk or stick it somewhere. Maybe what I'll do is I'll record a separate video of my checklist. You know what? I will do that. I know I'm kind of going off on a tangent here, but at my YouTube channel later today, I will absolutely post a checklist video. Okay? There's my YouTube channel link. It's youtube.com/Raghee Horner, or if you want, just head on over to RagheeReport.com and I'll post the checklist video. Okay? So either one is fine. So I'm going to get back to Snagit here in a minute. So you can head on over to either my YouTube channel or just head on over to Raghee Report. Either one, and I'll have the checklist. So I'll tell you what's on that list in the video. It'll be easier. But rather than answering it in a way that I think is unbelievably unrealistic and time-consuming, what I do is I use Snagit. Okay, now, I know there is on Windows 7 a built-in screen capture tool. I still prefer Snagit for a number of reasons. One, I think it's easier to use than the built-in tool. And the cool thing about the Snagit platform is that it's more effective to me. It also is more flexible in terms of what it will allow you to do. And let me show you what I mean. How many here have used Snagit? You can download a free trial version that'll work for a whole month and see if you even like it at snagit.com. I don't work for these people. I just love their products. Okay? So if you take a look here, what it'll allow you to do is capture a window. It'll let you capture a region, a fixed. I mean, you can capture entire web page, even if you have to scroll. It'll allow you to scroll a long web page, and you can capture it as an image. And what happens is, rather than having a written journal, which again, I don't know how many of you write quickly. I know I don't. And if I do, it's certainly not legible. Jing is great too. Absolutely. Same company. Same company. Thanks for mentioning that, Philip. Jing is great too. Snagit's about $30. You can try it for free. And thanks for mentioning Jing, Philip, because yeah, Jing's great too. Snagit is fantastic. And I use Snagit. I call it, I'm using Snagit as a verb, right? How's that for butchering the English language? But take an image capture of your chart at the moment you see the setup. Again, at the moment that you get in. Okay, and save these to your desktop. Because what you're doing is it's like taking a photo of certain times, Your memory might be great. You can remember a particular moment, but when you see exactly what the setup was, later on when you're troubleshooting it, I'm sorry, they say a picture is worth 1,000 words. They are right on, because there is no amount of writing that I could do that would capture exactly what I'm seeing as I'm taking the trade. And my trade analysis of my own decisions was exponentially more effective once I went to image capture rather than what we're all told early on in our trading careers, which is take all these, to do a trading journal. I'm fine for a trading journal, but for me it's more of a picture book. And by the way, once you capture it, let me just show you how it works. Once you capture it, I could capture this entire image of the website. Let's pretend that was a chart. The cool thing is, then Snagit will allow you to open it up into a editor. And let me show you what the editor looks like, because the editor will let you do a number of very cool things. So let's go to the editor real quick. And trust me, gang, this is totally important, because what happens, and let me see if I can get this editor captured. What happens at that point is that you can make decisions about making notations. You can actually add text. If you want to add text to it, you can absolutely make notes. Add text, make notes right on the image. There are drawing tools if you want to add. There are magnifying glasses. There are squares and highlighters, and you can do whatever you want to the image. Okay? Very cool. Add your arrows, whatever. Okay? I'm just making a mess, but I hope you guys get the point. So instead of those big long trading journals, within about 10 seconds, I can capture an image, make the notes, and just move on and save it to my desktop. Later on, by the way, if you want to keep a physical trading journal, print it out. Now, I don't know what Jing, I guess this is definitely not it. Let me Google Jing real quick. I just love what Google does with their home pages. They're just so fun. All right, there we go. TechSmith techsmith.com/Jing. Okay, so you can check that out too. So that address is techsmith.com/Jing. And I know I can't even remember what got me off on this tangent, but gang, I'm telling you, this will make such a difference in your trading in terms of making better decisions about trades. Because when you're doing all those notes and so forth, sometimes it's like a checklist. You'll find some errors as you're making notes right on that setup image. And then when you're actually taking the trade, when you go back and you go, what happened to that trade? When you see it at the moment that you got in, you'll be able to do a whole lot more in terms of, I think, making decisions about what you did right and wrong about a trade. Sometimes you'll have I have an entire notebook of these textbook entries. What I liked about it, how they coincided. By the way, they also are time-stamped. So the date and the time is the file name. So you know exactly what time you took this thing too, which is really great. So you'll have a date and time. That's the way I have the Snagit capture my images. It's the date and then the time. Okay? Anyways, I'm sure I had a reason that I went off on this complete tangent, but I hope it was helpful because, in terms of, I was talking about this cable and then going intraday. All right? Now, we talked about the swing trades that were valid, but because of the daily time frames directional bias, I think that's where I the checklist I was talking about, and why, if anything, this would be aggro at best or not a trade. What I then would focus on would be the short-term intraday time frames, 15, 30, 60 for potential trades. Okay? So 5, 15, 30. Now, if you still are, by the way, a cable bull and you think on the correction, there could be some support because of this. Again, I think this was a surprise in terms of the vote. So are there opportunities to get long? I think the 30-minute is probably not as good as the 15, but if you're waiting for a deeper correction, the 30-minute is better. So compare the 15 to the 30. The 50-minute is going to be sitting at about 64.65, while the 30-minute is at 64.55. So you have about a 10-pip range in which you could have a small zone of, it's going to be a narrow little zone in here, that you could look for a support on a pullback. And if you want to qualify that even more so, you could utilize the AutoChartist Power Stats. Notice here in this 15-minute time frame, I have the price movement ranges. Look at where the next 15, 30 minutes are kind of bundled up in this area. So I would need actually probably a little bit more time to see this correction, even on the 15-minute time frame. What's another alternative to, say, the Power Stats? Well, let's remove the Power Stats for a moment and use a Fibonacci. Got a pretty clear last major move here. Okay? And take a look. My 38.2% retracement is overlapping with my 34 EMA wave. That's excellent confirmation in terms of just an area that I'll be watching. Okay, so I've got two reasons here. I've got an overlapping of two reasons. One's my 34 EMA high. One is my 38.2 Fibo. Love that. Is there anything else lumped up in there as far as the psychological price or anything like that? 64, 61, not really, but that's a great confirmation of two different reasons why this might be a good corrective entry. I've got a 10-point range between the 15 and 30-minute swing corrections, and then I've got this here. So what I'll do, what you could do, is just park a limit order. All right, let me answer the question here that's popped up on the text chat. We will call it a day. Where is the best place to keep the journal itself? I think it depends upon whether you like an electronic version and just are happy with the JPEG or ping images that you'll save from the TechSmith screen captures, that Snagit or Jing, whatever you ultimately end up using, or if you print them out. Some people like to have them print it out. Okay, some people actually like the printed version, and sometimes I will have some color printouts. In fact, I do have a number of journals. Usually I'll leave the printing to textbook or just epic fails, just one extreme or the other. If it's just an epic fail of a trade where I just completely overlooked things I should have been paying attention to, I'll print it out. And if they're just textbook, I'll print it out. And I'll print them out nice in color because I want to see the grab candles and my lazy days lines and whatever else that I may be wanting to revisit in terms of the view of the chart at the time of the entry. So really up to you. There's no right or wrong, digital or physical, maybe a combination of both. I will absolutely, as I mentioned before, either at my YouTube channel or probably in both places, I'll go ahead and post that checklist video, what it is that I go through mentally. But in the beginning, you could just have it posted, noted to your desk. But I'll make sure I post it at my YouTube channel or RagheeReport.com, and I'll make sure I do that later on today. Okay, and I'll be sure to also mention that over at forexstreet.net, so you all know that I've done it. Okay, so thank you as always for your time and for your attention and for your questions. I always enjoy this time with the group, and I will see you all Monday, right? I'll see you all next week. Okay, everyone, take care.